state is that the planning board, the votes that we took along the process with this red schoolhouse were never taken negatively because of the historicalness of the red schoolhouse, but in reality we voted no each of the times because of the safety aspect of it. And since the planning board has already rejected these ordinance changes as a result of the crash at the red schoolhouse, and since we've had no input into this particular version, what I want to do at this point, before we open it up to everybody, is allow Ted to read a letter from Attorney Lenkowski, and then we'll open it up for everybody's comments.
Ted Kryzak. Joe Lenkowski was not able to come tonight, so he wrote a letter and asked me to read it. All of you should have a copy of it. And it talks about the process and what's happened and why the planning board and why the selectmen decided not to go forward with the petition that came through. It says, Board of Selectmen from Joseph Lenkowski, proposed zoning amendment to section 1.4.11.3 and section 3.2. I've been asked to provide a summary of the background and intent of the amendments which have been proposed to sections 1.4.11 and .3 and 3.2 of the ordinance. The proposed amendment to section 3.2 would add a definition of historical structure to the ordinance. Under the proposed definition, a structure is deemed historical if it had been designated as such by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission or comparable state or federal entity, or if it appears in the National Register of Historical Places. A structure may also be deemed historical by a majority vote of the town meeting or a majority vote of the planning board in a proceeding under section 1.4.11.3. Based upon a determination that the structure meets at least one of the criteria included in the proposed definition. The proposed amendment to section 1.4.11.3 creates an exemption from the otherwise applicable setback requirements of that section for the reconstruction or replacement of a historical structure as defined in section 3.2. The process which led to the drafting of the proposed amendments began when the Little Red Schoolhouse, located on a property owned by Dale Barrows, was struck by a motor vehicle and substantially damaged. Because the damage to the structure was determined to exceed 50% of its value, section 1.4.11.3 required that the reconstructed building comply with existing setbacks, which would have required that that structure be relocated to a portion of the Barrows property some distance from its location at the time of the accident. Ms. Barrows and her supporters felt that the Little Red Schoolhouse was a historically significant landmark and that the extent of the required relocation would diminish or eliminate its value as such. Therefore, they prepared and circulated a petition to place amendments in section 3.2 and 1.4.11.3 before the town meeting, which, if passed, would allow the Little Red Schoolhouse to be reconstructed in place. The proposed amendments were reviewed by Attorney Brad Moran and myself on behalf of the town. Brad and I both felt that the proposed amendments would be unenforceable as inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, largely due to the fact that no criteria were provided for determining why a particular structure would be deemed historical. Acton's comprehensive plan clearly contemplates an effort to identify and protect historical sites and structures, but it also contemplates the criteria will be developed to guide the determination of which structures and sites will merit the historical designation and the protection that comes with it. I attended a meeting of the selectmen on July 23rd, also attended by Ms. Barrows and some of her supporters. At that meeting, I attempted to explain my concerns regarding the proposed amendments as drafted and offered to meet with Ms. Barrows, Tom Gore, and Dick Neal to see if working together we could craft proposed amendments which would serve the purpose of providing protection for historically significant buildings in a way that would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Prior to our meeting, I reviewed ordinances from other Maine municipalities designed to deal with the issues involved in declaring certain buildings or locations historically significant. In preparing the current proposed amendments, I drew heavily from the criteria included in the ordinance adopted by the City of Portland. It is my opinion that the criteria included in the definition of historical structures, which the proposed amendments would add to section 3.2, strike the necessary balance between the need to establish an ascertainable standard for applying the historical designation and the goal of providing sufficient discretion to the town meeting or the planning board to allow them to consider a broad range of factors in deciding whether that designation should be applied to any particular structure. I believe that the proposed amendments as drafted are consistent with the directive in the comprehensive plan to identify historical sites and structures and to adopt rules and standards for protecting those resources. So the town was presented with a petition with over 180 signatures, I believe, to change the zoning. But through the attorneys looking at it and going through the process of the planning board and the selectmen and everything, it was determined that we could not put it forward because it was illegal. The process when you do a petition is, if the selectmen decide not to put it on a town meeting, then the petitioners can go to the town clerk, and the town clerk, or actually a notary public, so it could be any notary public, and they can call a town meeting. So that would put that question, which you heard is illegal, before the town. And because of the support that the Little Red Schoolhouse has, I'm sure that it would have been voted in. But then we would have had to tell code enforcement not to allow them to do it, and then it would have been a big battle and it would have gone on and on. So we tried to come with a legal way to ask this question before the town, and that's what we think we have with what Joe has done. The selectmen were not involved in the meetings, these were the petitioners, but because this is different than what the petitioners asked us originally, it has to be put forward by somebody else, or they have to start their petition process all over again. I got permission from the other two selectmen. The three of us are happy to put this forward at the town meeting and ask that the people of the town, if they want to accept these changes. But after your decisions after you have your public hearing tonight, you folks can decide whether you want to put it forward, or if you decide to vote it down, then the selectmen will have a meeting and we'll decide where it's going to go from there. Okay?
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak? And if you do, when you come forward to the microphone, please, and state your name.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dale Barrows. I have the actual article for the town meeting warrant. Does the public want me to read the whole article to you? It was online. It's up to you if you'd like to hear it. It's just a couple pages. And then I would like to make some comments. Is that okay? Okay. Shall the Town of Acton zoning ordinance be amended as follows, to add the following language after the first paragraph of section 1.4.11.3, reconstruction or replacement. An historical structure as defined in section 3.2 of this ordinance, which is not located in the shoreland zone, shall be exempt from setback requirements of the preceding paragraph, provided that, 1, the use of the structure after reconstruction and replacement is the same as the use of the structure prior to reconstruction or replacement. Number 2, the architecture and general appearance of the structure are not altered. Number 3, the dimensions of the structure are not increased. Number 4, the structure is reconstructed or replaced in its original location. In the event that a reconstructed or replacement structure has not previously been designated an historical structure under the ordinance, the planning board shall apply the criteria set forth in the definition of historic structure in section 3.2 to determine whether the reconstructed or replacement structure qualifies for the exemption from setback requirements provided herein. To add to the following definition to section 3.2, historic structure, a structure which has been designated as a historical structure or landmark by a governmental agency such as Maine Historic Preservation Commission or other comparable state or federal entity, or which appears in the National Register of Historic Places, or has been designated an historic structure by a majority vote of the town meeting or a majority vote of the planning board in the proceeding under section 1.4.11.3 of this ordinance, based upon a determination that the structure meets any one of the following criteria. A, it's a significant example of cultural, historic, architectural, or related aspect of the heritage of the town of Acton, state of Maine, New England region, or the United States. Or B, it is the site of a significant historic event or activity. Or C, it is identified with a person or persons who significantly contributed to the cultural, historic, architectural, or related aspect of the development of the town of Acton, state of Maine, New England region, or United States. Or D, it exemplifies a significant architectural style, type, style, or design. Or E, it is identified as the work of an architect, designer, engineer, or builder whose individual work is significant in the history or development of the town of Acton, state of Maine, New England region of the United States. Or F, it represents a significant cultural, historic, architectural, or related theme. That is what we would like to have brought forward for the town meeting for warrant. I do have some comments that I would like to share with you. Number one, I'm grateful for this public hearing. This has been a long journey with ups and many downs. Tonight, I'm hopeful that the proposed amendment to zoning is well received for our town's historic structures and landmarks. I'm very grateful for the help and guidance provided by our town's attorney, Joe Lankowski, plus ongoing support from Dick Neal and Tom Gore for this proposal. A good part of the wording criteria was adapted directly from Portland, Maine's zoning ordinance for their historic structures. The proposal also meets all concerns for consistency with the town's comprehensive plan, plus the need for objective criteria. Number three, as the owner of the Little Red Schoolhouse, I have a vested interest in seeing that this is received by the community favorably and move forward to the special town meeting. Number four, with this amendment change, we would be exempt from current setback requirements and be able to repair our older historic homes, barns, landmarks, etc., that traditionally were built close to the road many, many years ago, as long as it's for the same purpose or prior use, same general appearance, same dimension, and same location. Number five, I believe this amendment change is long overdue. Back in March, when I was collecting signatures, time and time again, a citizen would say to me, "Why would you even need a permit to repair the Little Red Schoolhouse? Aren't you already grandfathered?" Not true, according to existing zoning. As zoning currently stands, I cannot repair on its existing site. Yes, it has been frustrating, and why our community needs to embrace this amendment change that exempts historic structures and landmarks, which would include my Little Red Schoolhouse. I see my schoolhouse as a landmark. The residents, both long-term and new, living in the Youngs Ridge, Buzzell, Newbridge area, as well as many people that are live on Wilson Lake, Horn Pond, Great East, have come to appreciate and love the Little Red Schoolhouse. If you accidentally broke a window in your house, you'd repair it. If you accidentally drove over a nail causing a flat tire, you would fix or replace it. I would like to repair my schoolhouse that was accidentally and unintentionally hit by a distracted driver on its existing site. I thank you, Acton community, for your support for this proposal. I did also bring some pictures. Hopefully people can hear me. The pictures were the courtesy of a very good man, Dick Neal. He sent these along to me. This first picture is the oldest picture that we know about of the Little Red Schoolhouse. Dick was able to research that the first recorded activity of the Little Red Schoolhouse was in 1869. It probably was there longer than that, but we don't have anything else to fall back onto. As you can see from the photograph, that black and white photograph, it wasn't red, it was white. but it did have wood shingles and nice clapboards on it. Over the years, the schoolhouse has gone into severe disrepair. One of my neighbors that, unfortunately, she's passed away, Ruth Brown, she owns the beautiful farm and homestead across from my property. And I was visiting with her one day, and I was asking her, because she went to the Little Red Schoolhouse. I asked her, was sheet metal used for the roof? And she goes, oh no, dear. Those were wood shingles that were there. So over the years, I've been trying to keep up the schoolhouse in decent repair. And as you can see, it did have, I put wood shingles on, new clapboards, pine clapboards, and probably over the years you've seen me down there staining the red schoolhouse and painting the trim and stuff. So this is what it looked like before the accident. Right now, again, it's another eyesore right there on that corner, unfortunately. And I would very much like to, because it goes with my values, to go ahead and get permission to get my schoolhouse repaired. I'm hoping others will come up and give their thoughts on the warrant for the proposal for the special town meeting, and also extend their support for my endeavor to try to repair my schoolhouse. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Doyle. I live on Youngs Ridge. My dad lived up at the top of Youngs Ridge, and I live sort of down next to Joe Lenkowski, as a matter of fact. And I want to say I walk that street every single day and have done so with various dogs for 25 years now. And I can't tell you how many people have a fond attachment for that landmark, which is very distinctive. It's a beautiful site. It adds a great deal to the area, the neighborhood, and is frequently photographed. Very often you will find people who've pulled over to the side of the road safely and have taken photographs of it. I think anyone who's ever visited Acton in that area more than likely has done so at various times during the year. And in the fall, as we come on it now, when we expect the leaves to change, I think it would truly be a lovely sentiment for me to just encourage you to make an exception in this case, to go forward with the plan, because I think it will affect not only her Little Red Schoolhouse, but the various historical structures and landmarks that are left in this town, which are few and far between at this point. So I think it's important to show our support and allow for whatever rule change, I don't know how to use the term in regard to it, that will encourage us to have respect for our history in this town and to make it a more beautiful and more interesting town. And one other thing, I wanted to note that the Wakefield Heritage, I guess it is, had made an application, and at the very bottom of that hill, which can't be more than a mile away, the canal has now been made a historic it's now on the National Historic Register, just as of October of last year. So I think if you look at the continuum, and especially the close association between Acton and Wakefield, at least for us who live on the lakes in that area, it certainly is a beautiful continuum to think of having a canal that's on the National Historic Register. And if we can go up the hill, less than a mile probably, and have that along with the other beautiful homes that the Horns have, and now the Great East Lodge situation, we'll hope that that continues. But it's a lovely thing, and I thank Dale for pursuing this, because it really has been difficult for her, and I just want to show my support. Thank you.
My name is Don Van Sinderen. I am also a walker. I have been walking the roads of Acton since I moved here 26 years ago. I am horrified with the thought that this building would be moved from where it was when it was built in the 1800s. As we speak, it's been mentioned this evening, the canal. We are losing not only our Little Red Schoolhouse, if it's changed in location. If you folks know the canal, if you walk the canal, if you're part of the canal, then you know it is either self-destructing or it has been horribly vandalized. They are looking into it as we speak. It has changed immensely since I moved here in 1988. These little pieces of our history are not ever going to be put back the way they were when they were built if we insist on change. This young lady is simply asking to repair a building. She's not putting in a Dunkin' Donuts. She's not putting in, all she's doing is repairing a building so that it is the same as when perhaps relatives of yours used it. I don't think it is out of the question to support this person and say, yes, there should be a change. And hopefully, we can somehow hold on to some of these historical sites that bless the town of Acton and make it what it is. Thank you.
Paul Poyant. I have a couple of technical questions. I won't even attempt to go anywhere near where the last couple of speakers have gone. I think they're pretty eloquent. I tend to agree. So item D, I find it interesting that this item, the others A, B, C, E, and F go out of their way to use the word historic or history, and item D does not. I'm just wondering if there's a functional reason for that, or was that a oops? It would seem that if only one of these provisions needs to be true, that it's possible that someone could end up declaring something to be a historical structure with really no history behind it. You just sort of make a good case for a significant architectural type that might have originated 3 months ago, and that could be a historical structure. I won't belabor that point, but I think that's a little bit of a shortcoming. Secondly, in the paragraph above it where it talks about a majority vote of town meeting, the way I read this, town meeting is not constrained by items A through F. It's only the planning board that's constrained from A through F. So basically, town meeting could vote anything that they wanted that perhaps had a good rousing discussion on town floor. It could vote pretty much anything in that they wanted. That's perhaps not a bad thing. Perhaps it is. And my third point and final is just a question, more of a technical question, maybe more for the selectmen than the planning board. But my understanding is that if we have a change made to by ordinance, that there's a 30-day rescission period, meaning that we couldn't actually act on anything based on this warrant or this ordinance for a period of 30 days after town meeting. Is that a true statement, or am I making that up? I believe that to be true because the warrant and finance ordinance, when it went in, we couldn't actually use it until the following year because of that 30-day rescission period, but thought I'd put that out there. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? One last time, anybody else need to come up and speak?
I'd just like to make a few minor comments. That picture that shows up there, the before thing, that picture right there does not do justice to what that building looked like prior to the accident. In color, with the regular red, it really stood out. And so I'd just like to point that out. I think I'd like to commend Mrs. Barrows for the effort that she had put in there. You can see what it looked like before when she first bought the property on that upper right hand, and what she transformed that into the building down below. And in her effort, instead of turning around and just replacing the sheet metal on the roof, she turned around and went back to the shingles. So I commend her on that. And it was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that one of the planning board's concerns was safety. I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but we had discussed it in the past when that question came up, and my recommendation was that if it is restored to the original condition, then to prevent any future accidents like this, that a barrier be put up, either a guardrail, metal guardrail, or a concrete barrier out in front of the building, so that it won't, obstruct the view of the building, but it'll provide a barrier for any vehicles there. And if I remember right, Mrs. Barrow turned around and agreed that she would have no objection. I think it would be appropriate for the town to do that. Just like also to point out that over the years, I believe, the town has encroached that intersection closer and closer to the building. And so, I don't know, I'm hoping that if it gets all done and repaired and whatnot, the town will consider restructuring that intersection to give more room away from the pavement from the front of the building. And another point I'd like to point out is, it's pointed out under the existing setback requirements that in order to meet the setback requirements from both the Buzzell Road and from the Youngs Ridge Road, it would require moving that building back at least 175 feet back into the center of the field. And that's, if it only meant a few feet, maybe it could be up for discussion. But moving it 175 really puts it out in the middle of the field, and it would really look out of place. So I'm hoping we'll get a favorable review and comments and vote by the planning board. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then Paul, you coming up? Okay.
Yeah, I want to point out something sort of interesting. So without this ordinance in place, the building has to be moved, a couple hundred feet away from the road. With the ordinance in place, it has to be put in the exact same place. So arguably, you couldn't move it a couple of feet either way. I mean, it's like basically all or nothing, which is, it may turn out to bite us in the butt, but the bottom line at this point is we have a choice to move it a great distance, a choice to move it not at all, and really no choice for moving it a little bit, which is a little strange.
I've been watching the Little Red Schoolhouse over the last year, and I know like last winter was kind of one of our worst winters we ever had, and I was kind of proud of it, having 5 feet of snow on its roof, and it never moved. You had brand new structures that have fallen down under the weight. And just one other thing I just had on this ordinance on the setbacks and all this here. I was just wondering, what's the town going to do with the other 100 houses that are in town? It's kind of a concern. There's quite a few streets where houses are right on. If they had any little bit of damage, you can't fix them. I mean, I just, you know, it's kind of snowballing into something that should probably be addressed, either something changed or make a big change in everything. That's what I thought.
I see no one making an effort to come to the microphone, so I think I'm safe to say that this public hearing is over. Thank you.
I did have one question, Chairman. I'm not sure, I'm Dale Barrows again. I'm not sure what happens from here. Do you, as the planning board, make a decision whether it will go forward to town meeting, or?
We'll talk about this at our meeting and make a decision at that point, whether we vote tonight or whether we decide to hold it off for another 2 weeks. But once we start our regular planning board meeting, then we'll take it under advisement.
Okay. Okay. And will you personally contact me to let me know what the outcome is for that?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I guess I am going to reopen this public hearing.
I didn't know that you were just going to close it. I thought you were going to have a discussion.
No, we will do that when we get to our meeting.
Okay.
This is just
so
opened up to people. Go ahead, absolutely, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm Barbara Horn. I live at the top of Youngs Ridge Road. My family has lived on Youngs Ridge Road since the 1840s. I am assuming that all of my great-great-grandparents and aunts and uncles went to this school. My parents went to this school. My grandfather went to this school. When I moved away from Acton to the big city of Manchester, New Hampshire, I could not believe the number of times that people asked me, oh, where do you come from? I said, oh, you won't know it, it's a little town in Maine. Oh, where? Acton. Oh, do you know the Red Schoolhouse? Everyone knows we have many people that come to our town from out of state. And a lot of them come from, apparently, they're Franco-Americans. A lot of them come from Manchester, as well as Biddeford, Saco, Lewiston area. They, pay a great deal of our property taxes, enjoying our water. But I can't tell you, I was away for 40 years, and no matter where I went, everyone seemed to know this area of southern Maine. Great East Lake, Wilson, Mousom, and all of the historic ambiance that went with it. And this is one of the reasons that they come here, for our little white churches and our little red schoolhouses, our little Acton Fair. I am in favor of renovating this in the place it is. It's going to look like a sore thumb stuck out in the middle of the field if she has to move it up. It's just not going to look right. Not in the rural setting that we are. My other concern is about this hearing. Does this only cover this one building? Or is this going to cover all of the historic buildings? And I don't know that my parents' farmhouse is considered historic. I mean, it's at least 100 years old that I'm aware of. Well, I don't know, because I haven't researched it. Someone wrote in the barn that the barn has a number 1888, but I don't know that because I haven't been to the courthouse to look up the paperwork yet. But I have a carriage house that's sitting 3 feet off from the road. It's, the floor of it was built with just round timbers. I mean, they're still round. You can see the bark on them. They're not squared timbers, and I've been told that it needs to have a metal I-beam put in to brace the flooring. Without this ordinance, am I going to be able to repair my carriage house? Or am I just going to let it fall down into a heap? I don't know that. I don't know if this ordinance is protecting my rights to be able to repair my buildings that just need simple renovation because they're over 100 years old.
I mean, that's something that basically you'd have to come in and talk to Ken about anyway, to decide how that works.
Because I don't know, I just didn't know if this ordinance is specifically for this one building, or if it protects, because the beginning of this that I read almost sounded like if a building had not been put on any one of the historic registers prior to making your comprehensive plan, which I read, or I tried to read. I am a college graduate, and I probably understood 3 out of 15 words in it. So I don't know how the layperson is supposed to read it and understand it. But also, it sounds to me as if it wasn't on the historic register before the comprehensive plan was passed, then it can never be put on in the future. Because it says it has to be on it already. It doesn't say that it can be considered, a building can be considered for the historic register or whatever, main historic, at a later time. It says it has to be on it already, or it's not considered historic. So I'm just not...
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but in this particular...
That's what I read on the computer, on the thing last
in this
night.
particular ordinance that's coming forward, there's a number of ways in which buildings could be designated as being historic.
Okay, why don't we have a historic committee? Because under the comprehensive plan, I understood, if I understood it correctly, it said that there should be a historic committee formed to decide what buildings in town are historic. But I did not see anything in the comprehensive plan of who this committee was going to be, who was going to form it, or if it was ever formed. But that was a recommendation in the comprehensive plan that a historic committee be formed. So who's making those decisions?
I mean, to my knowledge, it would be the Board of Selectmen who would have to make that decision.
Well, it did not say in there that the selectmen will be the historic committee. It said that...
No, I'm not saying that they would be this committee.
The comprehensive plan, which we're going by, the rules of the comprehensive plan, says that there should be a committee formed for the historic.
It's one of the things that wasn't completed. The comprehensive plan gave a big outlook. Some of the things were enacted right away, some were enacted later on, and some were never enacted, and this may have been one of the things. There is the Acton-Shapley Historical Society, and we have a conservation committee in town, or some such.
Preservation.
And they looked at some of these things. They take care of, you know, they deal with the veteran cemeteries and things like this. But there, as far as I know, there was never a specific Acton Historical Society put together to look at old buildings, old dwellings, old sites, to see what was historic or not.
But I believe the comprehensive plan under historic buildings said that there should be a committee formed.
It probably did.
When was the commission, when was the comprehensive plan in effect? Because I wasn't here.
Well, that's it, you weren't living here. If you had been here, it would have been done.
I was making a living someplace else.
It's been a while.
I was making a decent living someplace else.
It was just one of the things that wasn't done, that's all. But this is
Maybe we
being,
need to
well, this is designed to
look at that.
make an exception for historical buildings that don't meet setbacks if they're damaged more than 50% of their valuation. Now, if you just needed some repairs to an ordinary old building, this wouldn't apply to you. You could talk to code enforcement if you need some kind of a permit to do whatever the work would be, but this wouldn't affect you one way or the other. You can make general repairs to your buildings without this document.
Well,
This is for,
I was under the impression that as it stands, I couldn't do that.
Only if it's damaged more than 50%.
Because I'm not 75 feet off the road.
it has to be damaged or the restoration has to cost more than 50% of the valuation of the building.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much you're valuing my building for, but I don't know how much an I-beam costs either, and I'll need probably 3 or 4 of them.
Well, then you can come in and talk to code enforcement, but this won't hurt you trying to fix your building, whether it passes or doesn't pass. You still ought to be able to do that. So I'd come into the code enforcement office, tell them what you need done, and then start the process with them. You may not even need permits, I don't know. But talk to them and find out. But this won't preclude you from doing anything.
It's 100% loss.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
For instance, like that.
On the best spot on the
I knew I should hesitate.
It's 12 feet from the road. My land is only 140 feet.
Hi, Amanda Cobb. I live on Horn Pond, and again, we always walk up to the Little Red Schoolhouse. That's our designated walk. We used to haul our son in a little red wagon to the Little Red Schoolhouse. I just want to point out that there's a number of people sitting in the audience that have obvious attachment to this schoolhouse, but they don't feel, for whatever reason, that they can come up here and speak behind the microphone. So just take them into account also, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, that being said, we're going to close this meeting.